I am Sean Jones, composer, trumpeter, and educator.
Speaking of education, you've been very much involved in music education, but go back to your own development as a musician. Talk about the importance of music education in your development.
Wow, where do I start? Music education. Well, number one, I've had great teachers from the beginning, not just in music. I remember my kindergarten teacher. I remember my second grade teacher. My fifth grade teacher is really special to me because she created an award for me and called me the class optimist. And that kind of triggered something in my brain. And I just sort of, from that moment on, just decidedly would see that the glass is always half full and not half empty. And so I'm thankful for all of my teachers. Suzanne Fowley, who gave me an assignment when I was 16 years old, told me to write a letter to my parents telling them what I'd be doing 10 years from that moment. And in that letter, I wrote three things. I wrote that I would be a college professor. I also wrote that I would have my own albums out. And I wrote that I would be Wynton Marsalis' friend. And my mom still has that letter. So I've had great teachers, but specifically around music. My first teachers were in the church that I grew up in, which is a Pentecostal church, Church of God in Christ specifically, and in Warren, Ohio. Minister Eddie Howard Jr. Eddie Howard Jr. played with a group called Commission back in the day, which Fred Hammond led. And he also played with Anita Baker, and he was the minister of music in the church I was growing up in. So I learned discipline with him because if you were off, he would just wave you out. There was no like, oh, you're doing a good job. It was none of that. It was just like, nah, you sound sad right now. Get it together. And then fifth grade, I had a teacher whose name is Jessica Turner. Jessica Turner gave me my first two CDs, jazz CDs, that is. Miles Davis Kind of Blue and Miles Davis Tutu, because she played clarinet and she loved Marcus Miller. Mm-hmm. And that changed my life. Then I would go on and have great teachers in high school. Isoto Pellegrini was a great teacher who taught at Youngstown State University and who was largely responsible for getting me into that school. There's also Dennis Reynolds. I know you know Dennis. Mm-hmm. Dennis Reynolds became like a father figure to me. And I would stay at his studio downtown Warren, Ohio at night. He convinced my mom that it was cool. So I would get there sometimes. I was 17, 18 years old at that point. I would get there at about 11 p.m. and just stay up all night listening to Basie records and practicing downtown Warren. And there was a policeman outside in his car watching me to make sure that I was cool. So I've had wonderful teachers from the beginning, both in the music and not in the music. And that largely shaped who I am today and why I decided to literally split my time between performance and education 50% each.
What compelled you to play the trumpet?
There was a few different factors with the trumpet. If I'm being totally honest about it, it was because everybody else in the church wanted to play saxophone or drums. And so I never wanted to be like anybody else. And so there was no one playing the trumpet. And then I learned that my great grandfather played trumpet or cornet in the Civil War or something like that. Or at least that's what my grandmother told me. I don't know if she created that just to get me excited, but she told me that story. The third thing, and probably the most significant reason that I decided to stick to it, I would say, is because it was hard. It was really challenging for me to play. It took me a month to get a sound out. And being sort of a little nerd coming up and being quirky and odd, I wanted to figure it out. And so the harder it became, the more into it I got. And I said, one day I'm going to master this thing. And so now that I'm almost 50, I'm still trying to master it.
Tell us about your relationship and prior playing experience with Emmet.
Wow. Well, I've sort of known Emmet when he was coming up. He was a student at Miami, and then he would go on to do his thing in New York. So I kind of heard about him. I heard about this young kid that had a trio concept. That was the first thing that somebody told me. Oh man, this cat has a rhythm section and a trio concept. He's checking out all of the masters. I said, that's great. Love to hear him. Never got a chance to hear him live until I actually played with him. And ironically, it was over the pandemic. And so I think the first time we played together was in his apartment. And it was, maybe it was late 2020 or early 2021. It was like, excuse me, it was towards the beginning. I remember that. And he said, hey, man, I'm trying to just give people some joy. I'm doing this thing in my apartment in New York. And I said, sure, man, I'll do it if, let's just do it. So I went up there and climbed up those, what was it, 4 or 5 flights or something. Like, it's so small in there. I don't know if you've ever been in there, but it's like crazy small in there. But they figured out a way to make it look huge. And it was just a party. I mean, we were just playing, and that stuff kind of went viral on social media and on YouTube. And we've developed a relationship since then. I really appreciate his concept.